Good afternoon. So I hope that you guys are having an awesome Thursday wherever this finds you. And we're almost to the end of the week, so that's pretty cool. So I think for me this morning, I kind of chilled out, had some coffee, and we got internet back. Not early on, but later on in the morning, we got it back after the storm we had. And now I'm just kind of gearing up for tonight, because I'll be at the Grand Slam working from 5 to 10. So feel free to come out and see me, eat some awesome food, and say hello, and consider getting a reading because it's really fun and can be very insightful. So I recommend it. So we are going to delve into the King of Cups. I'm going to hold them up so that you guys can see them. And like I always tell you guys, I want you to look at the predominant color themes in the card, what those colors stand for. Assess the body position of the king. Is he looking directly at us or away? Is it more of an open posture or not? Look at what's around him. So are his feet immersed in water or are they separate? What is he holding? What is going on, say, behind him? What is he wearing? So kind of take in all those symbols. So starting out, so obviously we have the crown here, okay? Now he is not looking directly at us. If we were to be immersed in this card, let's say you and I were in this card, part of this picture, it's not like he would be making that eye contact to want to engage or interact with us. It could be he's watching something going on and reflecting. It could be that he's a bit inside of his own head, because very similar to our Queen of Cups, which we touched upon, both of them are, related to the Suit of Cups. We've got an intuition, water very much in play here. So the difference is, so I encourage you, if you haven't seen it already, to watch the go live about the Queen, and she can be found on YouTube. So with our Queen of Cups, she's very much immersed on this like closed cup, which is significant for the subconscious, and her garment literally flows into the ocean. So even though she's on the beach, she very much has that connection to her emotional state. And like we had discussed on that go live, she's the only other card higher than her with that intuition would be the High Priestess in the whole tarot deck. So we're talking about a highly intuitive female, that energy. So it can be male or female, but we're talking that energy. However, with kings, they are expected to do the best they can by their people, taking good care of them. However, there must be logic involved. So they cannot rule their land and their people like 100% off of emotion. And I think, like any of us who have read stories or watched shows such as Game of Thrones, they talk about rulers who are fully so emotional, so immersed emotionally, and they make really rash decisions out of just their emotional states, and it causes chaos and death. So he holds this burden. So even though he is very much in touch with his emotions, he's very charismatic and charming, he is often sought out by other kings and his staff for advice, because he's so in sync. He's very empathetic. He can pick up on the emotional states and the overall well-being of the people in his kingdom, the people who serve him, his staff. They love him because he's got a good heart. However, he has to be very logical and firm. So if you see, his feet are on this like square of concrete that is situated above the water. And at any time he wishes, if he further needs to reflect into his emotional state to process that side of it, whether it be his own or what's going on around him, he can easily dip that foot in the water. However, he must be both, because that's the expectation, is that he be both. So he's holding his cup upright, and he's holding that with his left hand. So when we think of left-sided brain activity too, you're thinking of the creative emotional versus our right side. It's very logical. So it makes sense to me that this king is holding his chalice in the left hand. Then he's holding his staff, which indicates the power and authority he has in the right. So generally speaking, most people are right-handed. So that shows the balance that has to occur between the emotional and the logical sides of this person. So we have red, which stands for power, influence, victory. Yellow, which stands for warmth, illumination, clarity. He knows, he can see where he's going. Blue, meaning he values loyalty and truth. He is a very calm individual. So let's say if he has people that show up in his court and they're highly emotional, not rational, maybe not making the best decisions, they need to be careful with this gentleman because he will hold them accountable. However, he's going to be the calm presence. So not only is his robe predominantly made up in blue, he is wearing this chain with a fish that's hanging from it. And what that stands for is that he kind of goes with the flow, just like a fish kind of goes downstream, going with the flow of the waters. He too is very tranquil and calm and in control of his emotional states. He is not going to act out of, say if he's having a bad day, he's not going to take it out on his people or the people who work with him. He's going to really take the time to reflect and think about that. So around him, we see yellow and blue waters. I think that was a really creative choice of the use of color there. And then there's a fish in the background jumping out of the water, which that stands for emotions. Okay. And then in the background here, we have land, which again reflects that balance of logic. So we have both logic and emotion in play here. He is seated upon a stone throne. So to be this gentleman is a burden. This is not a duty that he takes lightly. Just kind of like Spider-Man said in the movie, with great power comes great responsibility. He realizes a lot of people depend on him to be a very good ruler. And so I really like that. I see my husband's on here cheering me on. Thanks, honey. So other than that, I think that's the main things that stick out about this card. And one other interesting thing that I saw was that Rachel Pollack in her book pointed out that the king and queen, if you put them side by side, are facing away from each other. So if you were to create a story based on what we're seeing here, it would almost be like their marriage may not be on the best trajectory. She seems very removed, very in her head, very intuitive, very much reflecting on her emotions. She too has that stone throne, and he's looking away from her. He might have a bit of a wandering eye. So when Rachel brought that up in her book, I really liked how she pointed out, if you put the two cards together, kind of like what your first impressions are, and he could be like at times if he talks with his queen about things going on in the kingdom. So the Queen of Cups is going to be talking to him more from her heart. She's way more emotionally driven than him because she's way more connected to the water than him, who has to be separate and immerse himself when it's appropriate and do so thoughtfully. So that could be a source of tension too in how they rule their kingdom. But at the same time, she's so intuitive and thoughtful. I could see him seeking her out too. What's your thought on this? This is what I'm thinking and feeling on the matter. But at least in public, there's no warm vibes going on here, And again, you see with him, that logic that's coming into play, that balance that with our queen is just not there. So I'll look at the notes that I took on our King of Cups to make sure that I've covered everything I wanted to cover with it. So with our King of Cups, we've got the balance between intellect and emotions. Meanings assigned to this card are charismatic, social, intuitive, just not as much as his queen, empathetic, distant, suppressed emotion. So again, he's very much in control of his emotional state. There's deep emotional or creative impulses that he doesn't quite show. You know, he selectively shows to the correct people what he's thinking and feeling, because again, it's an expectation. Wise, diplomatic. There's generosity. So again, his people love him because he's got a good heart to him. There's control and an emotional balance. So again, he's got the logic balanced with the emotion. Being fully self-aware of the emotions, again, does not act impulsively. Strong relationships. He values understanding and assessing how others around him feel because it's important to him. He is sought out as an advisor. The balance between the head and the heart is very much our King of Cups. And mentioned about his throne floating above the sea. Okay, his water's not touching his feet. I talked about the fish on his necklace representing his love of calm waters, tranquility. And then in the background, how we have the fish, which is our emotional. And then the other side, we've got land for logic. Now, let's say if you get this card in reverse, okay, what it can stand for would be repressed emotions, feeling very emotionally vulnerable and not able to continue to suppress the emotions. So, for example, let's say with our king, there's something going on in his kingdom that has caused a lot of hard feelings between the people he rules over and his staff, and they're pulling him in different directions. He's going to be torn as to how much stock he should put in logic and intuition, kind of like that Two of Swords card that I posted in our group today. Which one does he weigh over the other? How quickly does he need to make the decision? Ideally, there needs to be a balance sought out for the good of his people and his staff. Again, very feeling overwhelmed, selfish, meaning he's way too inwardly turned. To where he's so emotionally conflicted, it's really clouding that logic and objectivity he is expected to have. He can be a bad advisor, again, because there's not a balance there between the logic and emotion, and also not emotionally being fulfilled. So whether it be by people he works with or his own wife, if things aren't good with their marriage or his relationship's not good with his people, it will impact this King of Cups and offset that balance. So we'll take a look at some other cards I have here. So here we've got our King of Cups. And what I like with this deck is it shows that he's very much open. He, similar to the Queen of Cups with the Rider-Waite-Smith, he seems like he's very much focused on this cup. We've got predominant colors of blue, okay, and we've got yellow for the color of the glove, so there's a lot of knowledge and enlightenment. However, again, I feel like it's a bit of a disservice not to have logic somewhere reflected in this card, because I really like how the Rider-Waite-Smith paints that, because it differentiates him a bit more from his Queen. And from this particular deck, I pulled out the Queen as well. And if you put them together, you actually see how they're working together and keeping their cups full. So this is like a stark contrast to, say, the Rider-Waite-Smith, where their body positioning, their faces, all this kind of reflects things would be tense with them. With here, it's like we've got that teamwork dynamic, which ideally, if the king really reveres his queen and consults her for advice and direction, then he's going to be a strong ruler because she certainly is in touch with her intuitive. So here we have the King of Cups, and there is a storm. So there's all this chaos, and that's very synonymous of emotions and intuition. But despite this chaos, he has got his right hand very much like the land in the Rider-Waite-Smith. He is grounded, connected to logic. And then in his left hand, he has his chalice, And he is keeping that chalice full despite the chaos and the fluid is trying to leave the container. He is grounded. You look here though, his foot, if he wanted to, he could make contact with the water. So very similar to our King of Cups from the Rider-Waite-Smith. If he chooses to, when he chooses to, he'll dip that foot down and be more so in touch with his emotions. But here, again, I like how the right hand is very logical. There's action involved, okay? But then again, he's very balanced. Even his stance, there's a balance there. And then his left hand, he has the chalice. Okay, this one, we have our crow with the crown above his head, another stone throne. Again, this is a burden to have this position to be a king. Then there's the chalice here, and there's water around this chalice. However, our crow friend is not immersed in the water behind him, even though that's a predominant theme in the card. There's a very big part of this little crow guy. He's choosing objectivity and logic. So here we have our fish, and we also have, if not directly land, this would be a solid surface, would be a boat. So again, maintaining the balance between emotion and logic. And just like the crescent moon, everything comes in phases, and some phases hit harder than others. And again, it's about striking that balance, you know. With this one, we have our king, and he is sitting crisscross applesauce in the water. And he, how do I put this? Look at his hands here. So here, he's got contact with his cup, but then here, it's like his index finger is right up above the water. If he wanted to, he could immerse it. However, he's choosing again to maintain that balance of his logic and then that portion of him that's very much immersed in the water, which is more of his body's immersed in water. Well, at least the lower portion. Up here, it is not. So I suppose if he wanted to be fully immersed, he would just go swimming. But here we have that boat again, and we've got the fish necklace. And we've got that illumination from him, meaning that he's grounding. He's getting in touch with the earth. He's meditating and thinking. No quick decisions on the part of this gentleman. Very much goes with the flow of what's around him. Very thoughtful in action. And then here's another picture with our King of Cups grounding. So look at that hand here. So here it's like we got the staff that's driven into the ground a bit. The other, which is his right hand, he's holding the chalice. So to me, this is a bit reverse. From our other themes, the left, which is the non-predominant, should ideally be the chalice, and then the right being the staff that he uses to govern his people by would be right. So that'd be the action, the hand he takes action with. So I really don't care for the artist selection. Like, I like where they're going, but I think they should be reversed. Because yeah, it's a given this guy is predominantly emotional. Other than the like fluid in his cup, that it looks like he's having some trouble holding steady. We don't really get any other vibes like we do with the other card, you know. But I do like how it shows how grounded this individual is and reflective. So that sums up our King of Cups. And I hope that you enjoyed this go live, and feel free to leave me any comments with any questions or just general comments about it to, you know, share your knowledge based on what you think about it. And then tomorrow we will start our journey with the Suit of Wands, which I'm really excited about. So we will start off with the Ace of Wands tomorrow for a tarot teaching moment. And other than that, I think we're good to go. And I hope you have a good day, and I hope that you're able to come by and see me tonight to say hello and consider getting a reading, because it would be awesome. I would love to see all of you, especially if I've never met you in person. It'd be good to meet you. So have a good one. Bye.